Hello and welcome to Mr. Valentin's YouTube video for your Julius Caesar unit test. So let's begin. We're going to start by taking a look at literary terms. You want to make sure you have your anticipation guides with you and your plot diagram with you. We should be all set. Alright guys, so the first part of your test is a matching column. And on the matching column you're going to have to identify a literary term and I will give you the definition. So, for example, alright, you might have something that says along the lines of a long speech by one character, and you would have to answer that this is a monologue. So what literary terms do you want to make sure you know? And I'm going to go kind of in an alphabetical order because that's how the test is designed. Alright, so first up is an aside. Remember, an aside is when a character reveals private thoughts, and other characters are on stage. Now this could technically change depending. Certain characters can have an aside with each other, but since we're going with technical definitions, that's the best one. Catharsis, which is the purging of emotions. You have complication, which are the events leading to the climax. Then we have the denouement, the events leading to the resolution. Dramatic irony. This is when the audience knows more than the characters. Followed by euphemism. An expression used to make things sound less offensive. Alright, such as he was perspiring, or he was sweating all over the place. We have exposition. Where we find out the setting and meet the characters. External conflict. Conflict with an outside source. Followed by foreshadowing, a subtle hint at future events. After foreshadowing, we have hyperbole, which is just an exaggeration. Iambic pentameter, the rhythm of Shakespeare's words. Inciting incident, turning point of our story. Internal conflict, conflict within the self, monologue, a long uninterrupted speech, omen, a prophetic sign, personification, giving lifelike qualities, to non-living or inanimate objects. And we have pun, which is a play on words. Simile, which we know is a comparison using like or as. Situational irony, when something occurs that is the opposite of the expected. When you expect one thing to occur and the opposite occurs. Soliloquy, when a character reveals private thoughts and the character is alone on stage. Tragic flaw, a problem or defect in a character that causes his or her downfall. Out of room. It's alright. There's only 2 more left. Okay. Tragic hero. The person who has a flaw which causes their downfall. And finally, verbal irony, when a character says something but means the opposite. Just put that there. The only other one that you're going to want to know, which is on the test but not on the matching column, is an anachronism. An anachronism is modern conventions in an old play. So that's just the matching column. But if you know these literary terms, it's going to make the multiple choice that much easier. So, continuing on. The second part of your test is a true or false section. You don't have to correct the false statement, all right? But what you're definitely going to want to look at is your anticipation guides. All right. And I will pull information off of these to quiz you. as it were. So make sure you're looking over these. So an example of a question. Flavius and Marcellus are two commoners who are feeling joyous about Caesar's arrival. We know that's false because Flavius and Marcellus were two officials. And they were not excited about his arrival. All right. Another example would be Calpurnia is to be touched by Caesar to cure her barrenness, and we know this is false. Antony touches her. Another example, let's see, would be something like Calpurnia calls out the death of Caesar 3 times in her sleep. This is true. All right. But these are pulled directly off of your anticipation guide, so you want to make sure you look at them. This third part of your test is going to be your plot diagram, so you need to know your plot diagram. Right. Remember, your plot diagram is composed of 6 parts. The exposition, the inciting incident, the complication, the climax, the denouement, and the resolution. Be sure you know how to spell these. Remember, you lose a point on your test every time you misspell them, especially words like denouement, D-E-N-O-U-E-M-E-N-T. So, in this section of the test, as you know, all right, you're given an event that occurred in our story. You have to tell me when it happens. So it could be something as simple as Portia kills herself. And we know this occurred in the denouement. Now you might say, Mr. V, I don't remember this. I don't remember going over this. Well, this is where your anticipation guides are going to be extra helpful. All right. So if you look at your anticipation guide Act 4, we know Act 4 is the denouement. All right, look down, and there you see second to last. All right, Portia kills herself. So this is where a lot of your questions are coming from. All right, let's try another example. There's a tempest. All right. First off, you have to know what a tempest is, and we know a tempest is a big storm, and we know the big storm occurs in the exposition. Again, you may pause, all right? But if you look at your Act 1 anticipation guide, which we know Act 1 is the exposition, it says something about the weather in there, all right? Now, you have your anticipation guides. They were graded, all right? So you should have your second to last one again, all right? It says, Cassius says to Casca that the good weather is an omen. We knew this was false, all right? That Casca said to Cicero that the bad weather was an omen. All right, so you should have a reference chart to these. Let's try another one. When Caesar is slain, he says his famous words, "Et tu, Brute." And we know this occurred. Et tu, Brute. I'll eat tu, Brute. Well, I guess. Alright, et tu, Brute. We know this occurs in the climax. We know that was the climax of our story. Alright, but your Act 3 anticipation guide, again, references this information. The soothsayer says, alright, beware the Ides of March. And again, we know this occurs in the exposition. We find out Cato killed himself. This happened in the resolution of our story. Now you might say, Mr. V, who's Cato? Well, we had 2 Catos. All right. The first Cato, shall we say senior, who kills himself, is Portia's father. Cato Jr., who we meet also, he gets killed. You might have something like, Brutus has many soliloquies. We knew this was in the complication of the story, where he has his 8 successive soliloquies. Antony gives a speech at the pulpit, right, which is where he's giving the funeral speech. We know this occurs in the climax. I'd really like that to say speech, but you know. There we go. Can only ask for so much. Okay, all right. Even something along the lines of Brutus is killed, or I guess commits suicide. All right, we know this obviously occurs at the resolution. So it's these type of things, all right. Again, your anticipation guides should be the thing you look at most. You have a plot diagram in your notebooks. That's good reference points, all right. But your anticipation guides are also going to further some of these ideas. All right, the second to last part of your test is you're going to be quizzed on a quote, and you're going to have to tell me what literary term it is. So, for example, I have 4 examples here. Perfect examples of what would be on the test. All right. Cicero is collateral damage. All right. If you're making things sound nicer than they actually are, instead of saying Cicero is an innocent victim, we would call this a euphemism. Now granted, you'll have multiple choice, so you'll have more options. Another example. With Ate by his side, come hot from hell. And here we have an allusion. Ate is the goddess of discord and destruction. If you have a character who speaks alone on stage, we always know that it is a soliloquy. Remember, a soliloquy is almost always paired with internal conflict. So keep that in mind. Finally, Brutus says to Cassius, check the clock. We know there were no clocks in 44 BC, so we know this is an anachronism. It's pretty straightforward. The last part, you have a long response. All right, know that a league is 21 miles, in case you have your math question on your exam. You'll get 3 long responses. You just have to answer 2 of them. All right, you have to explain the quote. All right, the quote could be all sorts of things. And there'll be different versions of the test. So someone might have something along the lines of, explain the following quote, et tu Brute, but someone else might have, he was the noblest Roman of them all. Now, if you get the quote, he was the noblest Roman of them all, explain who said it. We know it was Antony. Why did he say that? Well, Brutus had just killed himself. Is there any other literary terms at work here? Is the statement true? Why does this close out the play? Does this reveal anything about Antony? Is Antony in any future plays that this would be an important quote? So keep all that stuff in mind. If you study all this, you should be A-okay for the test. All right, so again, anticipation guides, review your literary terms, all right, make your plot diagram, and you should be good to go. So good luck, study, and watch the video a couple times. Make sure you know exactly what information's appearing on the exam.